Hello everyone, my name is Lorena Malloy. Thank you so much for coming today. I'll be talking about the Tea Party movement and climate change policy. So some of you are probably wondering what does the Tea Party movement have to do with climate change policy, right? So just a few things on that. First, scholars are only now discovering that the Tea Party had long-lasting effects, and they're trying to see how the Tea Party movement has been underestimated. And especially in areas where the Tea Party was not a key player, right? So I would suggest with this study that the climate change policy was one of those areas. And second, although the Tea Party movement's main goals were cutting taxes and reducing government spending, the Tea Party was also very vocal about opposing any kind of legislation that was designed to curtail carbon emissions. And in fact, they were organizing protests against legislators who were supporting the cap and trade bill back in 2009. And third, the Tea Party movement not only benefited from a very vigorous grassroots support, it also benefited from elite support. So by that I mean the Tea Party caucus in Congress, but also interest groups such as Americans for Prosperity, who is a group that is heavily invested in the climate change counter movement, and two projects such as the Hot Air Tour at the time. But what's important for this study with the project, the No Climate Tax Pledge, federal pledge that ended up being signed by a large number of Congress members, including Democrats, some Democrats. So the question then is how did the Tea Party really influence, or was there any influence on the climate change policy domain at the time? So to investigate this, I look at the 112 congressional session, particularly the House of Representatives at the time, and which had included 60 Tea Party caucus members, 123 signatories of the No Climate Tax Pledge, but most importantly, about bills and amendments that were climate change related. There were more bills and amendments designed to hinder climate action than to promote climate action in this particular session, right after the Tea Party caucus moves in. And just to mention a bit the context prior to this session, we know that the Congress was highly polarized between Democrats and Republicans, and also that climate change policy arena was highly contested. But regardless of that, there were still some sort of bipartisan efforts between Democrats and Republicans at the time. So, and that we don't see that coming after. Okay, so the empirical strategy for this study, I look at two dimensions of the climate change policy process. One is the sponsorship and co-sponsorship of bills and amendments related to climate change, and the second one is the voting that takes place on these bills and amendments. And here I have the vote for climate action as a reference. Remember, I mentioned that there are two types of efforts in this session: against climate action and for climate action. Okay, and for in the interest of time today, I'm only going to speak about the findings for the voting models. Here I have the factors that are possibly affecting how the legislators vote. So the key variables for that are the Tea Party caucus membership, signing the pledge, and then Tea Party grassroots activism in district. And then some of the controls would be public opinion, which is basically a measure of how the public supported regulating CO2 as a pollutant in the districts. And the second one would be contribution from political actions committees, from vulnerable and benefiting industries. And here, when I say vulnerable industries, I mean things like oil and gas, mining, utilities, and so on. And benefiting would be alternative energy, right, or nuclear. And another one would be the presence of environmental group membership in the district, as well as the presence of vulnerable and benefiting industries in the district, which is different from the PACs, because this is basically just a measure of the economic landscape of the district versus organized interests, which would be the political action committees. Okay. And for the data, I have constructed a data set that includes about 123 bills and amendments, and out of those 123, 70 received a vote, and those kind of correspond to about 30,000 roll call votes, which stand at the basis of my analysis. And of course, I have a bunch of other measures and factors, an array of factors such as district, legislator, interest group characteristics to go in the models. This is just trying to emphasize again the difference between against climate action and for climate action type of bills. We see that we had 38 against climate action bills and 32 for climate action bills and amendments in this session. So more efforts to try to stop any kind of climate action. Okay, and the findings. So I don't think this is a surprise to anyone, this graph here, right? Basically, it just says that the probability of voting for climate action if you're a Democrat is much higher, right? But what is interesting is this next one, which looks at Republicans only. And we see that if you are a Tea Party caucus member, you are less likely to vote for climate action even compared to other Republicans. So we see that they're kind of more gung-ho about opposing any kind of climate policy than their other Republican colleagues. And similar with the no climate tax break signatories, again, this is Republicans only. We see that those who signed the pledge, and again, this isn't a surprise, those who have signed the pledge will be less likely to vote for climate action than those who have not signed the pledge. And just to give you kind of a better perspective, I'm going to show you the full view of the models here. So just for those who, just to explain how to read this, we have the neutral line at 1. So any estimates that fall on that line basically are not significant, and anything that falls on the sides outside of the line is significant. And of course, on the left we have negative impacts on the vote, and on the right we have positive impacts. So again, just to recap here, we see the three main variables of interest. Here what we can say is that being a Tea Party caucus member basically translates into about 28% estimated reduction in the estimated odds of voting for climate action compared to other Republicans, because we're looking at Republicans only here. And again, the no climate tax pledge translates to a reduction of about 14% compared to those who didn't sign the pledge. But what is interesting to see here is that Tea Party activism did not play a role. You see, it's right on that line. So grassroots activism did not count. But and some other surprising things here is that public opinion did not matter to Republicans at all, right? And also the other thing that didn't matter, which is a big surprise, is the political action committees. They didn't make a difference for them. And then to kind of give you the complete view, let's look at the Democrats. And here we'll see that some of the things that matter to them are public opinion, so quite the opposite. So public opinion matters to the Democrats. Tea Party activism, again, doesn't matter. But what matters to Democrats, political action committees from vulnerable industries matter. So interesting to see that, at least for this session of the House, we have this kind of dynamic. You see the biggest one here is Tea Party support in the district, which this could be picking up on basically the conservatism of the district itself. Okay, so with that, just to conclusions. So we've seen that the Tea Party grassroots elements do not appear to influence either stages of the process, either voting or sponsorship, which I didn't show you that, but I'm just informing you now. And however, the elite elements seem to work for both stages, sponsorship and voting. So these findings, what they suggest to me are three things here. Elite conservatives use the Tea Party brand for some of the following. So first, they would signal to their counterparts, their other conservatives, their position on climate policy. Second, they would strengthen their opposition to policy designed to promote climate action. And third, they would be able to pursue a set of conservative agendas that the Tea Party only loosely pursued. So it wasn't like on their main frame, but they were aligned with it. And I just wanted to leave you with a question that somebody actually earlier on mentioned. What would it mean to progressive caucus on the left today to kind of play in the same vein that we see it happening in the 112th House? And that's it. Thank you.